So we've talked about traditional epoxy-anhydride uses morphing over into new application areas, but let's take a moment and just simply talk about brand new areas that would not be traditionally considered for epoxy-anhydride technology. So lead us off, give us one example.
Yeah, an area of such applications is in wind power. So these wind turbine blades are getting longer and longer, and they cannot be made solid, of course, so they're hollow, and they have internal stiffening components, structural components that are made via the process of pultrusion. And these systems are now looking at epoxy anhydride systems because they give the high strength that you need to support such a large blade. So that's a very important application for these chemistries.
But people don't generally think about that. I mean, you think about wind power, you think about, vinyl ester, laid up, long parts or bottom parts or things like that.
Right.
And not really thinking about epoxy for maybe the stiffening the structural elements.
Yes, that's the part that's hidden inside the blade. You don't see that if you look at a cross-section of a turbine blade.
It's a very rapidly growing application area and in general, for a pultrusion type process, and you might have encountered some other applications that utilize pultrusion.
Yes. Actually, that is perfect. One kind of innovation for one market helps another industry altogether.
Right.
So, for example, we came up with some new innovations within the curing agent technology based on anhydrides for pultrusion to service the wind market. And when we got to really high speeds with epoxy anhydrides for pultrusion processes, we found that we can use that same technology for infrastructure, like rebar, composite rebar with epoxy anhydride.
Sure.
To be fair, there has been composite rebar out there, and that's got its own place, but now epoxy anhydride systems are also coming up, becoming prominent for that
But
market.
that's the thing, because the pultrusion process has been owned by that type of chemistry for the longest time. First of all, just to introduce epoxy chemistry into the pultrusion process is unusual. And now we're taking one step further and making epoxy anhydride systems.
Vinay hit upon a very key term, and that is your pultrusion rate. An epoxy anhydride system, when properly formulated, can give you comparable rates as vinyl esters, while maintaining all the other benefits of epoxy composites in terms of strength, TG, and also getting away from VOCs that you traditionally find.
Have you really seen epoxy chemistry used for a pultrusion process that starts to get close to the pull speed of other types of reactive resin chemistries? Are they really brushing up against that type of speed?
Yes.
Okay, then that's very significant.
Yeah, definitely. And we've been publishing papers from Dixie Chemical on that technology. Yeah.
Another one, which I think is at the advent, I would say, is additive manufacturing. Now we're starting to see some uses of the same epoxy anhydride technology in 3D printing, additive manufacturing, as you wish to say.
So we have actually a program at Oak Ridge National Labs. It's a cooperative research agreement where we just completed phase 1, where we've demonstrated the feasibility of 3D printing a thermoset system using epoxy anhydrides. In this first stage, we used liquid anhydrides, and then in the phase 2, which is about to begin, we will actually be working with the dianhydride in combination with the liquid anhydride, monoanhydride, and try to boost the grass condition and high temperature resistance even further in that process.
That's fascinating, because 3D printing has pretty much been the realm of thermoplastic systems.
Exactly.
And this opens up the whole new world in additive manufacturing.
And I think it's actually even related to the discussion we just had on pultrusion. I mean, you're taking traditional areas that have used traditional chemistries, and now you're moving them into not only reactive resin chemistry, but epoxy reactive resin chemistry, which is, I would consider, total new type of technology.